Hello, everybody, and buenos dias from Viña del Mar, Chile. John Coben here. This is a special webinar for all the recent catastrophe that's gone on in Chile. I'm just now starting up our YouTube recording. Just give me a second, and I will be right there. It's one of those auto self-produced shows. Hopefully we'll have some other folks come. A lot of people know this is on short notice, but I thought it was so important to actually have a meeting today. Joe, if you could just give me a check and we're okay, that you can hear my sound all right, and we're looking good, I'd appreciate it. Looks like Joe's video is not working either. Frank, anybody else here? Joe? And Joseph, Kalar, anybody you can hear me, you give me a check that we're okay. It looks like we're being recorded on YouTube. So I'm going to go ahead and assume that's the case, I guess. Okay, good. Thank you. I get the messages now in the text. All right, great. Well, so here we are in our new native land that many of us have left, the United States or Europe, and probably a number of people are going to listen to this recording later on and be asking, what's going on. As I said in the message I sent to people, I've been a resident of Chile for nearly 24 years, and I have never seen anything like this. And I've never had an opportunity in my life to ever tell anybody anything except that Chile is a vastly superior choice than living in the United States or Europe. That I can no longer say, at least for the last couple of days. And whether that's going to change or not is still up for, the jury's still out. We're still trying to decide that. But I need to be completely honest and open with people and recount exactly what the facts are, that what have happened, what's been led up to all this. I've literally been glued to news media, social media, and everything else I can to get information on what's going on. And I realize that's somewhat difficult for many of our Americans and Europeans and others that are here, Canadians, who don't speak the language well. You're always getting your news secondhand or having to read a news source that's kind of combed over by communists or reporters that are from the left, and that's never good any more than it is in the U.S. And I'm going to try to give you as good of an unbiased and good report as I can. I'm certainly someone who doesn't pull any punches in any way. I'm a straight shooter, and I would not be here today telling you this if I didn't think it were true, necessary, and I'm not exaggerating anything that I'm saying today. I'm not an apocalyptic, like things are about to crash and burn tomorrow kind of guy. I'm willing to stick it out when it's necessary, but it's time for you to think about pulling out that Plan B passport and at least having a plan in place for what you're going to do next. That is definitely the case. Whether or not we have this next seminar, maybe it's in a week from now, and I suggest to you, well, you know what? That was all for nothing, all for naught. Everything is okay now in Chile again. It's still going to behoove you to take time right now to think about, what can I do? Should I leave? Should I stay and fight? Should I, instead of staying and fight, should I just leave for a long vacation and then come back after the fighting's over? What are the chances, the prognosis for Chile? Those are all very valid questions, but this is the warning flag from the man they sometimes call Dr. Chile to raise up and say, you need to be thinking about leaving Chile if it's necessary, and you need to be ready to do that. Now, here's some of now I know that's kind of startling, but I think it's warranted, and here's why. We have a grand mass of population in Chile, and we've known this for years, who are definitely driven by communists and driven by the left, hardly. And as you know, they've caused an incredible amount of destruction lately in the country. Now, this is clearly coordinated, although we're not sure still, even the military here, and if you listen to the president's spokesman this morning, not sure who's actually behind it. There's some speculation from people like Jose Antonio Cast, who's kind of the conservative, somewhat libertarian candidate who wants to be the next president. And he said the Sao Paulo Forum, led by Cuba and Maduro and some other places, that got together in Sao Paulo some time ago have actually orchestrated this, that they looked at Chile as being this bastion of freedom, kind of like the ugly sore that we look at North Korea and say the communists are there. They look at Chile as being that, and they want to eliminate it. They want to cause a social unrest and uprising in it. And therefore, within all the 300,000 or 250,000, whatever it is, Venezuelan immigrants that came, 5,000 of them, or maybe 3,000 at least, were actually plants. And then were actually terrorists that came here with that design in mind to help out the Chilean communists and others pull it off. Remember, we do have 6 or so elected communists. I say or so because there's others who are not in the Communist Party who are the same thing, to Congress. And although they're a small minority, they're vocal and they're active. And 35 years ago, they were not only militant, they were mean, and set off in the mid-'80s here well over 1,000 bombs, killing innocent people, throwing acid on them, assassinating, obviously, people in the military and whatnot. Complete chaos. And Chile won that fight, but it wasn't fun to win. It required a lot of stamina, and it was a lot of grief getting past the communists. So at any rate, that is one possibility that I don't know, I can't confirm. I even listened to Cesar Vidal, who's an evangelical intellectual, MIT degree, historian, philosopher, who was in Spain after he spoke out. It bombed his house there, and he moved to Hawaii, so he always calls himself the voice living in exile. And his analysis was that too. He can't confirm that this is actually the case. It could not be that was just so spontaneous that we had 16 buses burned, 16 metro stations completely destroyed, and a total of 71 metro stations really damaged badly. On top of that, a 30-story building that housed the Enel company's their headquarters. They're the ones who run the metro, which is mostly a state-run or state-owned organization, kind of a mixture of private, public. Effectively, it's another state, either monopoly or not a directly run company by the government. But anyway, it is what it is, some kind of hybrid animal. And so they torched that, right? And all the 70 people got out, but to torch a building and have the metro stops hit like every 5 minutes. If I looked at one schedule and one was hit, and then another one 5 minutes later, another one 10 minutes later, seemed to correspond with basically when the next train would arrive. And throughout the night, it wasn't just spontaneous, it was an attack. And so you could say, okay, well, if it's an attack, it's a lot more understandable. We were being attacked from outside and whatnot. Well, sure, but that still doesn't answer the question of what you should do. The fact that we have a war here, for instance, doesn't mean that you want to hang around for the war. You may want to say, well, let's let them run the war and then I'll come back later. That's a perfectly logical choice. And so I need to bring that out to you. It also might make sense for you to say, Chile's kind of our Alamo, and I don't want to be the last guy to run out of Dodge, and therefore I'm going to stay here and fight. That's also a logical choice, but I think whatever choice you make, you have to make one based on reason and not emotion, and also make one that's going to make the most sense for you and your family. And so I'm here not to tell you what to do. I'm just telling you, you probably need to be making a choice, at least have a plan B in place. There are other theories that circulate around as to why this could have happened. Whether it's just internal Chilean uprising, that's also a possibility. The communists are strong enough here to do that. And of course, it's not just communists who are doing this. What happens is the communists motivate these youngsters in schools, and they start manipulating these young kids to do acts for them, like they had when they disobeyed the policy of paying for the metro. In reality, they're orchestrating a grand plan. It could have been them. They are that organized here. And they do have weapons, by the way. Somebody brought this up the other day. Well, there's a gun ban now in Chile. I don't know if you knew that too. You can't buy, as of this morning, weapons or munitions. If you got them already, that's fine. I'm not sure that applies to our clubs or not. I still haven't found that out. But the communists have had stuff ever since East Germany, Cuba, and Russia offloaded them off ships in the mid-1980s. And they came in through the desert. They were buried in, they were put underground in small bunkers throughout Chile. We're talking about bazookas, rocket launchers, mortars, and M16s, those kind of weapons. And so they have a lot of them. They weren't all found during the 1980s. They are still around and still very lethal. So communists here have a lot of power, and they have a lot of firepower. So does the military. But as we've seen so far, the military has not been willing to stop what happens with this. And so you have this massive communist manipulating young people. And then also the hardcore socialists and some of these other parties on the left join in, and they're willing to come and join forces and be part of these uprisings. And as you notice, they're everywhere in Chile. Some people said to me the other day, well, this is in Santiago only. I'm sorry, but it is not. I got helicopters flying overhead in Reñaca, Concon right now, as they're watching all these people, these protesters in the street, while the public hospital system's closed down, some other unions, which are all run by lefty commie types, marching in the streets in Viña del Mar. That has never happened. I've never seen them have the water cannon trucks and tear gas just hit on Libertad like it was on in some of the streets in Santiago in the past. I saw that with my own eyes when I had to be down there with my wife in the hospital on Saturday. And so this is happening here locally, and I have no reason to believe it's going to get any better. So what happens is that, and I'm getting back to my story, I'm kind of running all around here like I often do, but when the communists do this insurgency that they have planned, they track these young people first, they manipulate them, they get the masses all riled up, and the masses aren't interested in the violence part, but they're useful idiots to walk down the street and carry signs and clang pots saying they need to have more food, just like they did in the Allende years. And so those people are just the useful idiots, and behind the scene are these other programmed, vicious people that are going ahead and doing what they do. Then they're followed by these opportunists, and there are lots of them. We're talking about thousands of them. I've said many times in the blog that Chileans are almost always or generally liars, and we found that any American or European who's lived here knows that they lie and they cheat, and that many will steal. And that's what I was alluding to in this last comment, is that what we've seen is these opportunists get to the point where they know there are some weak spots, and they will go and just loot stores. We've seen malls looted all over the place, from one end of the country to the next, breaking in without any kind of resistance, either from the store owners like there would be in America, or from the military or the police, and just carrying off goods. I mean, there are people boasting about it on social media. They get home with all their stash, all the food they ripped off, and their plasma TVs and whatnot, and they show people on public, WhatsApp and things, all the stuff they got. And it's disgusting, and that is typical for that Chilean class. So you got these opportunists that are running. They're not communists. They are not leftists, probably. They're just crooks. And so they're running amok and doing whatever they want. And then there are the communists who go out and find the stores and just torch them. There's no reason for the looters, to be torching stores intentionally. That's not their game. They just want the goods, But the communists want chaos, and they know that if they put a store up in flames, well, it costs the company a lot of money. It also puts lots and lots of workers out of work. I mean, a lot of people cannot go to work today, not only because there's no way to get there, especially if they come in from the outside of Santiago or some of the major metro areas, but because their business establishment no longer exists, or it's been looted and destroyed, or if not burned. And so that in itself is an enormous chaos. There will be some reconstruction that tries to go on, and that will employ lots of people for menial tasks to clean up. And there are volunteers doing it, people cleaning up their own neighborhood, trying to defend their neighborhood with hammers. It's kind of silly instead of guns. But there is some action from the grassroots. That's true, and there are still lots of really good Chilean people. I don't want to paint this as a total disaster, that Chileans are all a bunch of scum, and it's not true. There are lots of people that don't like what's going on here, but that doesn't change the fact that it is going on. It also doesn't change the fact that in the future, things are going to look really different here one way or another, and that we have a president in Chile who's a guy that's seeking to get either more popularity or his own place in history, and is acting more like a Christian Democrat, center leftist, that wants to just get along with everybody. And it just doesn't work that way. So I've been writing to some people, and some people think it's kind of crazy. I'm doing two things. First thing I do, and all of you guys will appreciate, I get out my 45 and I point it right at the camera and I say, they come here to me, they're going to meet something, and I'm not going to be afraid to use it. Excuse me, but I'm not here to be tortured by a bunch of communists or others. And so I'm willing to take a stand personally for it. But let's face it, that's not the case with everybody in Chile, and therefore there's a lot of people who are going to have serious resistance issues or face a lot of grief on account of it. Criminals will have their way for some time to come. It's not stopping anytime soon. So at any rate, I guess my general point is here, we can talk about some of the details now, what happened. We can talk about Iquique's store being burned, the big Coca-Cola plant in the Sofre. We can talk about in Viña here, the Cuenta store being burned, or Concepcion, the Sodimac that got torched and burned down. We can talk about the different buildings in Santiago and infrastructure that have been destroyed. We can talk about why people are going to be not really willing to restock the shelves right now. You can't even get food here. I mean, have you checked? The stores are only open until 2 p.m. today again, and they're scared to death that as soon as they let a bunch of people in, they're going to be looting or burn the store down. So they let people in selectively, and then you go out. There's only 2 gas stations in the entire 5th region, apparently, that have gasoline today. I mean, we're talking about shortages, something that would happen normally under communism. And although in market situations, when you have an earthquake or a disaster, these things quickly repair themselves, those companies have to think insurance does not cover damage from terrorist acts in Chile. And therefore, those people who lost a Sodimac or a big store aren't going to get their money back. They have a true loss, and therefore they're not going to want to rebuild, replenish with inventory. We've got really a hard time cut out for us. People have even been suggesting to me, you better start, you got some packages of seeds, better go find some spots open on your land there, John, and plant them. And they may, in fact, slightly be right, because it may be easier to grow your own food for a while here. I don't know. I'm not trying to preach fear here. I'm just giving you the reality of it. There are problems here, and normally they would be solved in the market, but as long as there is no resistance from the government, it's just a failure, and they don't kill a bunch of these people, as I was leading up to before, that are in the midst of crimes, we're not going to have any resolution. Now, I hate bloodshed and all this stuff, and people think it's crazy when I talk like that, when I show my gun and whatnot. I tell them, I want them to think I'm crazy. I don't want them to come to my house and give me any brief. I'm going to shoot. I have a permit to carry it in my car now. I'm going to carry it with me all the time. And there may be times where I feel a need to be that's so safe that I have to carry it on my person, even if it's against the law, in order to save my family. I'm going to do that. But the military needs, if they're going to really be the government they're supposed to be, needs to step up. And when they see these people robbing stores, burning down stuff, and destroying property so that people no longer have the ability to live because they lose their jobs, they lose their wealth, they need to aim those rifles they've got and shoot these guys. And they said, well, that's just crazy. How can you? Well, what do you want me to say? We are in a situation of crisis here, folks. And these are criminals in the act, and you're just letting them go. That just can't happen. I don't care how nice or amable, or these are the words that you want to use in Chile. You can't treat people that are communists and criminals like that when they're in their violent acts. So now, having said that, I hope they do it. I doubt they will. And for both of those reasons, maybe you don't want to be here while this is happening. It's not going to be the most pleasant time. For my part, I'm longer term here than the rest of you, than many of you. I just don't have the same resources that you do. I also have a bigger stake here, and all that I have here is in Viña del Mar, the little that I have, I guess I can say after all this. And my wife's Chilean, and I have an opportunity here, but I still do have my Plan B passport. And if it ever does get really bad, I will be on a plane somewhere, just like maybe some of you should, but I may be the last one to leave. I may be the one who turns the lights out. I'm not expecting any of you to turn the lights out with me. I'm not saying that you shouldn't leave right now. Maybe you should just leave tomorrow if you can get a flight. The airport's not necessarily the best place to go right now. Long lines, and the personnel can't get there for baggage claim and for checkout and for the police. So the flights are canceled in large measure. That will change at some point as soon as people can start getting there to work again. And then I don't know about international flights either. Maybe they'll bring their own staff to fly in and out. And you may need to book that reservation and find an island you want to sit on. Maybe you make an opportunity to get your second passport in order. Go fly and live in Dominica or whatever they're called, one of the Caribbean islands, or Mauritius, or who knows. Maybe you'll make some other plan. But I'm not even sure where I'm going to tell you to go. If you really want to go, you don't want to stay and fight. I guess a general recommendation would probably be maybe you should be waiting and seeing what's going to happen, because the things have changed so fast. they could change fast again. And I do want to underscore that again. I couldn't have said this a week ago that I'm telling you now. I'm just shocked that it could have happened this fast. But remember, it also changes fast. Chile was the freest country in the world from 1820 to 1920, one of the freest in the world. They had classical liberalism here, except for the social oppression of the Catholic Church linked to the state. Economically, it was a totally free country, like you would say about Singapore. And so it had a heritage of that. And there were uprisings and problems, and the government and other people put them down. There were free banking here. That changed in the 1920s after debilitating World War I, a great earthquake in Valparaiso, the opening of the Panama Canal, the synthesizing of salitre. So Chile suffered. I mean, there was a tremendous downfall there, and Alessandri took power, and the left got hold of things. People, the voting was extended to women and poor people that wasn't there before. And this ended up changing things to the point where we had 50 years of Chile of up and down with very little kind of right-wing rule, which is more conducive to libertarian ideas here in Chile with Alessandri in the 50s. Other than that, it was a disaster until Pinochet finally cleaned it up. And so then we had all these years of growth and prosperity, and things were going great up till last week. And then we had this happen. So things can change rapidly. When Pinochet came in and cleaned it up, it wasn't to the extent that now, it wasn't. Then it was worse now than it is now. Then it was worse in 73 with a 10,000% inflation and things like that. So yeah, you could actually imagine that things would more quickly come back to normal here. And we already know that free market reforms work. They didn't then, so that they could install people in offices and in places in the state that would promote free market ideas again, as long as they're willing to take a strong hand. So it could happen very quickly that Chile is restored back to normal. There were 1,300 arrests on Sunday. There were 972 yesterday. Don't count on these being really fantastic, because Chilean justice is totally dominated by the left. They'll probably be out in 2 weeks from their sentence or whatever they're doing. Even if they get convicted, they'll be out, put an ankle bracelet on them, and they'll be out setting more fires and doing other things. So although that's a small victory, it's not a great victory to have these people arrested. It will be much more effective, as I said, and it sounds radical. If you catch them in the act, just shoot them, literally, like have the military go after these people, and that will stop. If they did that for 500 of these looters and criminals every night, it probably would end this rather quickly. But Piñera does not have the political cojones to do that. He's just not going to do it. Doesn't seem like it, at any rate. But we'll see. Things are going to get worse before they get better, in my point of view. So having given you all that history, I hope you can understand that there is a call to be ready to leave, and maybe to take a long vacation. You should at least consider it. If you're going to hang out here, that's fine. Get involved, be part of the libertarian movement we're starting here, have started for a year, to make a difference in this country, and hope we can save the Alamo, because there may not be another place we can go on Earth that's not going to have the same problem or worse. That may be your choice. That's fine. I appreciate and respect everybody's choice. I think they're both legitimate choices: stay and fight, or flee, or even this kind of third choice, go on a long vacation and see what happens and come back, hopefully, after the dust settles. So having said that long introduction, I hope that was helpful for some of you. I am willing to answer now questions and give you details. I know you don't all speak Spanish. There may be some details that I have or you didn't understand, like what's going on. Just unmute yourself and talk. This is a free forum for that, and I'm happy to give you guys any help or information I can.
John, hey, it's Frank. How you doing?
Hi, Frank. Fine, thank you. Yeah, right. Relatively fine.
Exactly. Yeah, obviously. I've seen some people posting about blaming some of these fires and things on government provocateurs. Can you comment on that, please?
Yeah, appreciate that. I saw that too. I saw the ones where the Carabineros supposedly shot the tear gas on top of the roof of a Unimark or a Totus or something, and a couple other videos. These things might be true, but there's not necessarily any reason for the Carabineros to do such a thing. They haven't gained anything from that, and I don't see the clear benefit. It's also likely that it could be something out of context, just like when they show the Carabinero vehicles full of goods from Leader, stuff, like they're stealing them. It may be that it's out of context. It could be that they're taking some of the stolen goods back to the station as evidence, or maybe they're doing something else with it. I don't know. I'm not going to say necessarily the cops are not corrupt or not willing to start fires. They might be, but I don't see any direct benefit for them in doing that, or from stealing stuff from the store. And it could be isolated cases too, that, yeah, there are bad cops that are doing bad things. That's possible. But Frank, I really think these are trivial compared to our other problems here. And I wouldn't put much stock in that. From the cops I know, from the people I meet, and others you can testify when we go get our concealed weapons permits, or not concealed, our sporting club weapons permits, and the others we meet on the street, the military people I know, they're not involved with this. They are not interested in leftist ideas. In fact, they're very much on our side. They have a libertarian streak to them. And I really doubt that it's a massive problem with government internal corruption. But it's a good question, and it's something we have to leave open as a possibility. But compared to the rest, let's be frank about it, Frank. We're talking about a mole on somebody's skin compared to a metastasized cancer that's growing everywhere in the country. It's a rather small incident, relatively speaking. That was the end of my answer, by the way, if anybody else has a comment or question.
John, I've got a question specifically regarding our case. I'm in the U.S. right now, and I actually have Chilean relatives with us. What's the recommendation if they're here now? Should they see if they should extend their stay, or is there any reason they should try to go home?
If I were there right now, I would stay there. I don't see any reason to come here when you're going to have hardship. So you have to just watch. I'm not saying you have to stay there forever, but take a look at what's going on here.
Well, for the sake of their personal, or for their properties, I mean, they are in Concon, but I mean, what are the chances those neighborhoods are also going to be affected?
Yeah, well, that's the 50-cent question, right? If I knew that, I could get a cup of coffee with 50 cents at McDonald's. But I just right now it's completely clear here in Reñaca. We don't, and Concon, it's clean. There are some barricades that have been set up here and there. It's hard to go shopping. I mean, Joe sent out a picture this morning of the shelves of Concon's Jumbo bare. I mean, people are just scared. They're running there and buying up everything they can when it does open, hoarding the food, and Jumbo's not supplying. The trucks aren't necessarily running. They don't want to run their trucks because they're scared they're going to be a problem. So why would you want to come back to that situation? That alone. If they get close here to me, I don't know if you guys can see down my hill. I know you think I'm speaking euphemistically, but that's looking down the hill from where I live. I've got a really, oh shoot, my camera doesn't adjust the light to. Okay, I think that may have solved it. I have some kind of system problem here. Anyway, I've got a bird's eye view of people coming up the street, and I would not hesitate if there were people walking up the street here with fire, setting fires in the street, throwing rocks, stones, whatnot, just taking shots at folks. Now you say, well, that's kind of wild. Well, it is kind of wild, but that's the point we're at. I don't want people here that are trying to take away my life or my wife's or my neighbors. And there are a lot of people in Concon and Reñaca, just like in northeastern Santiago, that have guns. And it's not uncommon here in Chile. In my gun club alone in Reñaca, there are 930 members, or 950 members, excuse me. And they're all very good shots and very, relatively well-to-do people that are armed. And so I think the delinquents, or as we call them, the criminals, know that. But why would you want to come back into that situation? I mean, do they want to come back and hole up in their apartment and be like me with my pistol and hoping that I can make a couple of good shots at communists when they actually show up here, if they do? That doesn't sound very appealing to me. It's not appealing to me personally, and I wouldn't want to expect up in your area it would be appealing to you either. So if I were them, I would just hang tight and see if things calm down or improve here, and then come back. That would be my recommendation. I don't see any reason to come into a situation that's complicated, and it's complicated here. I don't care how people like to paint it. It's not nice right now in anywhere in Chile. And I'm talking about not just Santiago and Viña del Mar. I'm talking about in Concepcion, in Iquique, in Osorno, in Temuco, in Rancagua, La Serena. All these places have problems. This is an orchestrated nationwide act that's going on that hasn't stopped. And every day this week, we're going to have a different union that protests. And as soon as the truckers decide they're not going to be delivering goods anymore, it's going to get really ugly. And I see, looks like he lost his connection. Anyway, that's the answer to that question. It's probably not what people want to hear, but I don't see how I can be honest with you and tell you any way else. This is not a pretty situation we have, and it's not looking any better. I know a couple of you are in Viña right now and on the call. And you can log in with your own perceptions. I mean, you're safe and sound. You haven't seen any kind of dire danger come near your door if you're in your Reñaca Concon, have you? Or am I mistaken? Other than the hassle of not being able to buy gas or groceries, which was a pretty important hassle, I guess. Anybody else have a comment? Anybody seen anything I haven't? Okay. Well, I guess I take that as a no. It looks like Joe has a problem with the camera there, so I would expect him to be chiming in more. Let me just double check the chat, make sure everybody's okay here. Oh, it's quiet here in Jardín del Mar, right? Yeah. So I'm looking at Jardín del Mar right now, Joe, and yeah, it doesn't look too trouble to me. I should mention that traditionally, when they've had these kinds of movements of the left in Chile, our areas are left unscathed. The first time I've ever seen them come down Libertad, and the other day when they started fires and stuff in La Dehesa, was the first time the leftists actually went to the point of going into the upper class areas and doing this sort of stuff. It's not common. And so I would suspect that in your homes, you're going to have very little problem with people actually being on the street. But since they are starting these incursions, I'm not ruling it out as impossible. And therefore, you should probably be aware that it could happen. If you don't have a gun, you're going to wish you had one. It doesn't sound like you can get one right now. But that would be the recommendation. I want to underscore, too, that I'm being a little bit I'm not exaggerating anything, but I'm a little bit pessimistic because I want you to be prepared. It may be in 1 week that all this blows over and they do something and Piñera pulls a rabbit out of the hat and this stops and everything goes back to normal and all the goods and services are restored and everything's fine again. That may well be. But if anything, I want you to be prepared to think you might have to find another country. What that country is, I don't know. If this can happen in Chile and Latin America, you might as well write off every other Latin American country that's a possibility, like Colombia, Panama, Uruguay, things that people mention. It's already happening right now in Bolivia, which is a disaster. We already know Argentina and Venezuela are disasters, and Ecuador has its own riots and stuff going on. I wouldn't recommend any of those places anyway. But if you cancel off the map all of Latin America, it doesn't leave you with much unless you can hole up on an island for a while in the Caribbean or Mauritius or the Cook Islands. New Zealand is what New Zealand is. It's a generally freer place, very difficult to immigrate to, especially if you're over 45 years old, and very difficult to live with because it's so politically correct. And for people, it's just disgusting to have to put up with that. Same with, Singapore has its own kind of social repression. Not that it's like political correctness so much as just, they hang people for smoking pot or, it's an incredibly crazy place as far as that goes. And look at Hong Kong. I mean, Hong Kong was the first place that got hit in this anti-freedom movement, if we can call Chile the second one in the chain. Who wants to go to Hong Kong right now? The Chilean stock market dropped 7% on the average company yesterday. And today it's going to drop again. I mean, values are going down. A tremendous amount of hardship is what people are looking for as far as companies here. Switzerland, yeah, go to Switzerland. That sounds pretty good right now. But boy, if you don't speak, German Romansh or Italian or French, you're not going to be able to get a visa there long term. That's for sure. And it's going to be very expensive to live there. And if you need to work there at any rate, you can almost forget that too, especially if you don't have one of those languages. So Switzerland might work for some people, but it's not going to work for most. Same with enclaves like Guernsey or Jersey, places like that. Some people have mentioned going to Georgia. Well, all right, well, you're talking about a little country with little defense and constantly overrun by big brothers around them. That it seems to be, at any rate, that doesn't seem very attractive, although it might not be a bad option compared to other places. I mean, your options are pretty limited. I mean, anybody else got a better idea than the countries I just mentioned? There might be something out there. Some people actually threw up Australia as an act. If you're going to go to Australia, you might as well just stay in America. It's not like it's that much better there with the socialism, the taxes, the way things are, oppression that goes on, political correctness, things like that. So, guys, that may tilt your scales to say it's better just to stay and fight, because where else am I going to go? Unless you got the money to live on an island and wait it out, that might be okay too. But I'm just not sure. The EU, which is my backup, I was talking to my wife about it, and she's, we've never had to have a serious conversation about doing that, but we're having one now. And if I had to go there and hole up, there's some places I could go in rural Italy, for instance, or rural Spain, and we could get along with the language, obviously, in Spain, but in Italy we could make do. Other countries would be much harder. Same with places like Romania. But yeah, you're talking about living with high tax, behemoth socialist states full of regulation, have their own form of police brutality and lunacy. And you could live there kind of poor and in a little country town where the internet doesn't work well. And just, Italy is just, backwards. Same with Spain and a lot of these places. And okay, yeah, it might be safer here for the moment, but looking at Catalan and what's happening there, Catalonia, what's happening in Barcelona, it's not real clear. There seems to be some pretty significant problems there too. So yeah, where to go? Well, that's another big question. Really big question that for me makes it easier to say, well, I'm going to at least hold up and wait for a while. How to get out if you actually have to get out at the last minute, that's hard. But the airport's not working in Santiago. Remember, there are no other international airports worth anything. Iquique flies up to, I think, Bolivia. If you can get up to Iquique's airport, and Punta Arenas has some flights, if I'm not mistaken, to the Falkland Islands and also to Argentina. I don't think Concepcion Airport flies internationally. I may be mistaken, but I'm pretty sure it does not. So the long and short of it is, if especially if there's no buses running up to Iquique to get on a 48-hour bus ride, you're not going to be getting on a plane easily to leave the country. Your next step then is to take a drive over to Mendoza or some other pass. It'd probably be better to go to Bolivia, drive, all the way north and cross up over Colchane on that dirt road up there. It could be, because I think I think Argentina is such a basket case, and with their retinal scan and their other kinds of police state procedures, it's not a very comfortable place to go. And certainly you're not necessarily going to have a great time flying out of the airport, any of those places. Maybe Brazil, if you could make it over there, would be a better shot. But then you got to still decide where you're going to go. One person mentioned, well, I'll just stay in Brazil. That's better. I'm sorry, but it's not. I don't care if you think Bolsonaro's the next best thing to sliced bread. I mean, he's simply not. That country is extremely violent and has lots of other problems internally that it does not make it a very good paradise to go and just set up shop forever in Brazil. Paraguay might be, in the sense that it's rural, and if you don't mind planting some stuff and getting water rights somewhere, you might be able to hole up in Paraguay better, because they're kind of lawless anyway, kind of a Wild West sort of country. You might not even get noticed there. But we're talking about crazy options here. I mean, who never thought about any of these things? So if you're going to ask me where are you going to go, I just listed all the names. If you can think of other countries, great. Let me know now, because I'm interested in knowing, but I don't think they're out there. I think we've got a worldwide problem with people who don't like liberty, who are imposing their states on us. And we are going to have to suck it up, especially if we don't have massive assets to live in Andorra or San Marino or someplace like that with the rich people who are enjoying all this while we all suffer, kind of thing, watching from their living rooms. Okay, well, there's another soapbox for you. Anybody have any comments on where they might go if it's not Chile? Thailand. I'm looking at the comments here. You can unmute yourself instead of, I'm not reading everything here. I should do that. I think you covered all the options. Panama is going to have the same problems as here. Panama is growing well, but again, Panama is very violent. It's got a history of kidnappings and other things, especially in Cologne, that don't make it attractive. It's only got 3 million people in the country. If you need a job, Panama City is the same size as Viña del Mar, or the Viña Valpo area. And so I think it's out of the question unless you're going to open a little golf cart repair business on some golf course in Boquete, or a restaurant in David or something. You don't mind doing that, that's fine. But you got to remember that if it could happen here, this kind of violent uprising of Marxists, it certainly could happen there, and you're not necessarily making any gains. Would it be for the foreseeable future a good shot? Yeah, maybe. Maybe say I'm going to take a 2-year vacation to Panama. I can see that. Yeah, I can see that. It's hard to get, I think it's easy to get permanent residency there. It's very hard to get citizenship from what I understand. So you can, bear that in mind as a possibility. Sure, leave it on the table. If that at some point looks better than Chile, go to Panama. I have an opportunity for a Hungarian passport, options about Hungary. Yeah, if I would definitely get the Hungarian passport, but again, you're stuck with the same problem I have with the EU. The EU is not heavens, for us. It's not like it's a libertarian paradise or something in any way. I mean, all those countries are beleaguered, basically controlled by France and Germany, at any rate. And on top of that, they have their own nasty bureaucracies that are really making it a nightmare to live. Very high taxes. Then you got to learn Hungarian on top of it if you're going to go to that country. To live there and only speak English is not going to be ideal for you. So it'll be a lot of hardship going there. And I'm not saying it's not a bad, it's a worse option than what you've got now, or that it wouldn't be a good shot for a couple of years. Visiting Europe, if you have the money to go and tour around and stuff, is fantastic. I mean, it's a beautiful place to see. I loved my time in Budapest. So I would, I kind of like the idea of just going there and holding up for a while. But that doesn't mean it's going to be a good long-term option anywhere in Europe. I just can't imagine any country in Europe that would be a really good option, even Georgia or Estonia, either one, the Czech Republic. None of those are really that good. Thailand and Malaysia, no, I don't think so. It looks like we had Joseph's off with a student. Yeah, so I'll leave this for the recording. I don't think so, Joe. I mean, if Thailand has had its own problems that are of severe nature, I only know that because I had some online English teachers I knew over there, and they were really suffering with some of the current policies. It started making some correct turns, I don't know, a decade ago or so, and then it went the wrong way again. So Thailand is not a free market place, a good place for people to go. It's also, it's appealing for people that like to have young prostitutes, which probably none of us have any interest in because they're all over the place. When I was there, I was shocked at how many plainclothes prostitutes would just come up and solicit me unless I, walking with my wife, literally they would be like flies all over me offering their services. And they were nice about it. I'm not saying they were mean or anything, but it's not a place I'd like to live. I have no interest in living in that. And Western civilization has its merits as a superior institution than Eastern civilization. And that's clear when you're in Thailand, in my opinion. Now, if you say, well, I'd like to go there at any rate, okay, well, I don't care, go where you want, but it wouldn't be my first choice to go to Thailand at any rate. And same with Malaysia. Malaysia has some prosperity again in an extremely poor country, really very Muslim country also. And if you spend much time in Muslim countries, they are not the most attractive place to be for many reasons. And yeah, you can superficially live in some of them that are moderate Muslim countries like Indonesia and Malaysia, and certainly Dubai. but they're expensive to live in those spots, and you got to have some kind of a job and some kind of ability to communicate. Unless you've just got a lot of wealth, you can park in Singapore and then, you know, live up the road in Kuala Lumpur or whatever. It doesn't sound very appealing to me as far as just having a quality of life that would be somewhat normal to live in that kind of society. Again, if it suits you, I doubt it suits you, Joe, knowing your background, or Joseph, excuse me. But I wouldn't think that it's a good place to go. It is cheap. That if you want to say that, you can buy a meal for half the price there that you can in Chile, and they'll rub your feet for you for 30 minutes for $1.50. So if those count for anything for quality of life, great. Those might be options, but I can't imagine you going and choosing and living in a place because of those reasons. Okay, a lot of countries are better for immigrants than cities for the immigration than citizens, though, and U.S. included. That's true. If you're a foreigner living in the U.S., you live much better than a citizen there. That's probably true about the EU to some extent. So good point. Thank you for bringing that up. Doesn't really answer your question, though, to where you're going to go, does it? I can tell that some of you are thinking about this and kind of scratching your head. Well, Chile's got this problem, but you know, where am I going to go? You know, where do you buy the ticket? You're buying your boarding pass. Where is the destination going to be? That is the question. If you decide to leave, it doesn't look very rosy for your choices. Panama. If it's me, where am I heading? Well, I'll probably go to Europe, but that would be my choice. But it's not going to be a happy choice because I like to visit Europe. And I've said many times, I do not want to live there, not under any circumstances, that as long as the currently reigning circumstances exist in those places. If anybody has spent time in Europe and can echo that, great. I have not been to New Zealand for the last almost 20 years. 19 years ago, I was there. And as far as I can tell, it's gotten worse, not better, in a number of ways. The searching and stuff in airports, they can confiscate your hard drive now. Anytime they suspect you might have something offensive there or anti-government or whatever. And although it's generally free market, it's a tiny country like Panama, and it's got lots of other, you know, problems associated with it. Yeah, it'd be nice and easy to go plug in for the language, but in some ways it'd be a nice place to live. It's beautiful, out of the way. I'm not sure if the ticket to Auckland is the best choice, but at least you could start there. Maybe that wouldn't be a bad place to go for the time being. Yeah, I think you covered all the options. Anything else here? Nope, that's all the questions I see in chat, unless I've missed one. Oh, wow, there are a lot of questions here. Let me just quickly run through them. I seem to have missed them during the chat. I was expecting people to unmute themselves, and instead I've got questions coming in text. Yeah, what happened? I can't hear. I don't know. My microphone stopped for a minute, and I had to unplug it and replug it in. It's been doing that lately. Don't ask me why. I don't have any idea. Okay, Clark just left. Kalaris, I don't know who that is, but he said, God bless and best of luck. Yeah, thanks. Appreciate that. Okay, and so John is here also, and you have a question. I missed your introduction. Who do you think is causing the problem? Well, all right, I'll review that quickly. This is being recorded on YouTube, so I don't want to say too much about it, but if you have other questions regarding it, great. We don't know who it is for sure. The government, Jose Antonio Cast, other people have said it's a coordinated, orchestrated act, probably with the Communist Party involved at the core, perhaps with the help of Venezuela, Cuba. It's a lot of speculation. There is no proof, so we don't know, except that there's no way it could be spontaneous to have metro stations hit once every 5 to 10 minutes on like a coordinated schedule. And then the main center burnt down, you know, where the headquarters for the company were located in El. And then these, you know, moving to the provinces, as soon as there's no curfew or anything else, they just, you know, hit you, you know, they burn down buildings, you know, destroy jobs, things like that. So we don't know the answer, and it may take a while for them to figure it out. The bigger problem is, what are they going to do about it once they discover who these hoodlums are? Are they going to kill them or not? And the answer seems to be no. They're going to make friends with them and try to give in to their demands. Have you seen the demands, what they want? The left, they publish them. We've known them for years, you know, they're not, you know, for months. They want to work only 40 hours a week. They want the minimum wage to be boosted. They want to be all tolls to be free on the highways and the metro, as far as I can tell, and buses. They get to ride public transportation for free. And there's a number of other things on their list. I guess we could go through the list. I could pull it up. If somebody has it, they could share it. But that's what they want. They want socialism, and they're not going to stop unless they get it. They want freebies. They want everybody else to pay for their life and the way they live, and live better at the expense of other people. And unless the government gives in and does that for them, and I don't know how the government would do that, but unless the government does, they're just going to continue to destroy everybody's property and wreak havoc. That's what they're saying. Joe, I don't know if you happen to have that, and you can call it up, or I'll look for it in chat just to read the list of their demands. And it's not just one group making the demands, by the way. It's, you listen to the senator like Camila Vallejo or Carriola, these communists, and some of the others, and they'll mention the demands. That's what they want. And they'll say, what do you expect? I'm sorry that's happening, but what should you expect? The people are unjustly treated. This is abuse, and we need social justice. And this, if you're going to continue to abuse us in Chile, then we're going to act this way. That's just the way it is. That's their answer. It's like, this is the rising up of the people. This is the class warfare. That's just to be expected. You should have known better. That's the kind of stuff we're hearing. So anyway, let me see if I missed any more here. No, I think that was it. I can't post an image here. All right, I'm gonna this is gonna be boring, but let me pause and do a search in my WhatsApp to see if I can't find the list of demands. And Joe, if you could find it here and send it to my WhatsApp, that would be easy. Oh, here it is. I found it. All right, I'm going to share the screen so that you can all see this. I think I can share the screen. Should be possible with my new Zoom abilities. So there it is. Can you all see that? Let's translate this thing. It moves up and down, it looks like, in my WhatsApp. Nothing will be normal until everything changes, is what the title says at the top. We have to get out and fight. That's the next line. All right. Third line, or the number one, says we want a minimum wage at 500,000 pesos a month. Right now it's 300,000 roughly. So they want what's that, an 80% increase in their salaries right away. They want to work 40 hours a week instead of 48. And there's no seen flexibility that afterward means. I think that would mean they don't have to be required to do overtime or other things. They want to have that 40-hour schedule like other OECD countries that they believe they deserve because they're so productive. Right. They want, the third thing, they want a basic pension, which is guaranteed to be at least the minimum wage. So no matter what the private pension funds do, and their mutual funds, their savings over their lifetime, they're going to get that 500,000 pesos a month currently, and that would, of course, go up with the UF and inflation. They want free passes to get on transportation for students and people that are elderly. So I think I mentioned that earlier. They want to have complete price fixing or freezing of any kind of basic services. I don't know what that is. That might be electricity. It might be water. It might be, I don't know, school. They want price fixing on certain services. They want to end the private Social Security. That's AFP. They want to eliminate that completely. And they want to go back to a Social Security system like the United States has, or other European countries, where the government gives us a pension every month. What they don't remember is before the military government knocked out the communists here, there was tremendous corruption in Chile with this. There were a few people that made out like bandits and were making the equivalent of what would be like 10 million pesos a month in the pension. There were especially rich people, lawyers, and others who were able to do the manipulation. But if you didn't work constantly for 40 years without fail, they could stop your pension and say you didn't complete the entire 40 years. You had some time you didn't work, and therefore you get nothing. And many people were pensionless, or many people received severely reduced pensions that might be the equivalent of earning a couple $100s a month under the government system, because it was so laden with corruption and these favoritisms going on. So they want to go back to something like that. It's really crazy. It's just they don't understand history, their own country. And this is what happened before. It just sounds so wonderful that we could have the government give everybody big pensions. Of course, they don't understand the economics of this anyway. That's another comment. They don't understand that if they raise minimum wages, freeze prices and all that, it's going to cause loss of jobs. It's going to cause lots of other distortions in the economy, but logic and evidence and theory, these aren't things that socialists and communists really care about. They're interested in having their party in power so they can live high in the hog, literally as the pigs of Animal Farm, and everyone else suffers in the barn with a worse system than they had before. Okay, number 7 is they want to completely statize or nationalize public transportation. So the government owns all buses and trains and metro, et cetera. And we all know how that works. They want to have state pharmacies without any kind of collusion between them. So the government runs all pharmacy and medicines. That'd be also really great. They want to have let's see. Okay, I think when it says compra de terrenos para viviendas sociales, I think this is the takings where people just moved into other people's land and stolen it, kind of squatted there, built their homes and stuff. Or they want to be able to buy their land where they have it and be able to sell it again that they stole, and kind of get permission to have the stolen property put into their name. Or they want to be able to go and get these kinds of public housing put up for them where they get it either for free or some dramatic discount. This happens sometimes in Chile too, where they try to assuage these people. And I think in the extreme south, and it may make some sense there. You live in a remote area like a Pioneer. They need people, the population on the border to make sure the Argentines don't run over and take more Chilean territory. When they do that, they give them a deal where they say, okay, you pay $300,000 one time and we'll give you this building, this house, which is pretty decent. You don't have to pay anything for the next 20 years or some other credible deal to keep them happy there while they're earning their minimum wage. Could be that too. So there may be something I'm missing in that number 9, but they basically want a handout on where they live. Number 10 is the fin de lucro, which means that you completely end any way to earn profits, either in hospitals or in universities or in private high schools. So if you do that, you have to be nonprofit. You have to be willing to do it and work and hire people and take risks without earning any profits. That's what they want. The Constitution says that, but people have been able to get around that ever since the 1980s, and they want to end that completely. At number 11, they want a new system for child protection. I'm not sure what that means, except they have this thing called the Junji, is what they call it now, the JUNJI. That's been kind of a disaster for helping, provide kind of lunches and preschool and kindergartens, things like that. They also have this tsunami system, which is kind of like the juvenile delinquent center, and that's been a disaster too, and public health or mental health for these people. So I don't know what they want, and whatever it means, a new system is that their initial state system's broken, so they think that another state system run by communists will be better. But that's what they're asking for there. It's kind of silly in all ways, but that's what it is. And the last one, number 12, is expropriation or nationalization of waters and any kind of natural resource. So the state will then own all kinds of, all the copper, all the water, all the lithium, all the salmon. The state will own all private property. So yeah, okay, that's what the communists want and these others, and they're going to continue to destroy Chile until they get it. Anyway, what do you think about that list? That's a pretty good list, huh? No comments? Well, I imagine as libertarians especially, you're not real pleased about the list, but that's those are the demands. And it's regularly talked about in Congress here, by the way. I mean, they want this stuff. They've wanted it for months, and they keep trying to get it passed now that they have majorities in both houses. The president's pushing back on most of it, but he's caving in on some stuff too. So and now they're just sick of it. They want this stuff, or if they can't vote it in, they're going to force it in. Their policy is, I'm only interested in staying, in voting and things like that if our party wins. If our party doesn't win, we're going to be violent. That's what they're telling you right now. And we're going to get all these things whether you like it or not.
Are you hearing this?
Yeah. Is this something Carlos could listen to?
I'm hearing this, John, if you're talking to me.
Carlos.
But this meeting, we got in an hour late.
Patrice's boyfriend. Could he listen?
It's too late now, but maybe he can hear it on the internet later.
Could he record it?
I said it was.
This is being recorded on YouTube, so they will be able to do it. And if this doesn't change, this meeting will occur again, either later this week or next Monday or Tuesday. One reason being is there's no way to go to work. I mean, I might as well just sit here on the internet and talk with you until they cut the power or something, right? Because I have very little work to do anyway, even though I do a lot of work online. So yeah, there'll be more of this because people need to be well informed. And if you don't speak Spanish, you don't know any of this, right? What I'm telling you is something, you're learning something right now. Let's put it that way. If you're an English speaker living in Chile, you didn't know all of this, even though the rest of us have been hearing it for months and the buildup, and then also seeing what's happened the last few days. So I'm here to help you get informed and make the right decision on what to do. Okay, let's see. I've got it here while you're thinking of the next question, John or others. I think an island is the best for me, Dave said so far. Could be, yeah. If you don't mind living on an island, I lived in Hawaii for a year. It was a little bit of a drag. It gets kind of boring after the first month. But yeah, it might be a better place to live. And if you don't need to work, Dave, then by all means, pick an island. I know some people live on San Andres in the Caribbean. Again, if you want to go to Santa Lucia or some other place, I think John here has been in Puerto Rico. I'm not sure that's a good choice just because it's linked to the United States, but other people might decide that it is a good place, and there might be other islands that they want to hole up in for a couple of years and get a suntan and get a second passport. I don't know. It could be a good option. So I'm not here to criticize anybody's choice. I might help you think through whether or not it is a good choice, but in the end, it might be the place to go right now. But as I told Kalar earlier, if I had a choice to stay where I am outside of Chile instead of coming back, I would stay where I am right now. I don't see any reason to come back to a disaster that continues to get bigger. And that opinion of mine may change in the next week. So you might hold your breath for that. But at the moment, I don't see any reason to want to put yourself in harm's way or in any kind of a difficult situation. Can you imagine what the economy is going to be like here now? The stock market's going down because we're literally crashing. 7% in a day is a big drop, and it'll crash again today because who wants to invest in Chile right now? I mean, are we better than Venezuela or Argentina? I mean, come on, we're looking and smelling pretty similar to the other Latin countries right now. And if Chile is no longer the bastion of property rights and security, where you have the government that defends property rights, it doesn't matter what the paper says, that you may own it, but if they can burn it down or destroy your inventory or steal from you with impunity, it's not a very attractive place to do business. And so if those companies are seeing that right now and they're thinking, well, maybe this isn't the good time to be in Chile. And if that happens, Chile goes down because Chile is an export-based country. I don't care how much retail and other activity we have here. It's a lot, and it's a growing country. It's an OECD country. All that is true, but we survive because we have copper, salmon, wine, lithium, steel, gold, or not steel, iron, gold, silver. What am I missing? Pork products and fruit. Those are all exported from here, and that's why Chile survives, especially copper. But all the rest add up too. And if those things are no longer having good business, relations in the rest of the world, why in the world would Chile prosper? I mean, it's a little country, 17 million people. Although it's bigger than Panama and New Zealand, it's still a very little country that's smaller than most states in the United States, if I'm not mistaken, or at least a good number of states in the United States. I wouldn't think you'd want to be here for that when that goes down. It could change, and it could change fast. The military probably won't put up with it at some point. We did call for the military in August, 2 weeks before the coup d'etat in 1973. The House of Representatives got together after being abused. It read like the Declaration of Independence, all the abuses that Allende was doing, torturing people and doing other things. They called on the military to intervene and depose Allende. And so the Chileans are willing to do that when they get their backs pushed up against the wall. And it could be fast. Literally 2 weeks after they said that, and the House of Representatives here, they nailed Allende. He committed suicide, and we were on the road to recovery. The road to recovery was longer then than it will be now, but still, it's a road to recovery. Do you want to live in a country on a road to recovery? Let's assume that that they knock these guys out or something quickly. Okay, great. You still have to live with the consequences for a while. So my advice is, why don't you just stay where you are? I mean, what's the point of coming here and living through the excitement of a semi-war zone or whatever this could turn into? I'm not looking forward to it. I mean, I'm the guy that's been promoting Chile for a long time, and I'm here telling you that. Why would I do that? Why would I suffer with that if I didn't have to? If you're already here, your choice is a little different. You got property here, you got kids in school, you got a job, or something you're doing here. Well, okay, you got different incentives. But if you're not in Chile right now and you have no reason that you have to be in Chile, why would you be? That's a pretty obvious question to me. Keep your eye out. Maybe you can help us as the contraband agent, to send in what we need if it's necessary to fight off the communists. It's a worthy cause. I do think it's our last best shot for liberty in the world, probably, but we still have a little bit of a victory or a battle to win. There are half the country is full of looters, criminals, and communists, or something like that, or manipulated by them, ignorant people that want this list that I just read to you of stuff, and they're not going to stop until they get it. That's crazy. It's an insane policy, satanic policy, if I can also add that, that's not going to be very conducive. Okay, here, yeah, John says, yes, definitely learning. Thank you. You're welcome. I'm glad. I want to help you be informed. It's probably too late, but there are ways we can go, other ways that we can share something with Chicago. Sorry, let me get my glasses a little closer because apparently I'm not reading well. Chileno friends to help them understand basic economics and the problems with socialism. Absolutely. No, I mean, staying here and fighting that's part of the deal. And if I'm going to do that, I continually am on 3 times a week now lately, talking to people in chat rooms and on video and this Zoom cast, educating people. And I've got a lot of people who listen to me, and I've got a lot of very good connections with other people who are also listened to, like Axel Kaiser, or Montes Perez de Arce. I just translated his book on the Chilean military revolution. I also spoke recently to Pepe Piñera. That's the guy who invented the private social security system and got mining rights to be secured so a foreign investment could come. He also completely liberalized labor laws. I mean, I know the movers and shakers here, a lot of them. The problem is, like Axel said to me after all this morning, Axel Kaiser, I'm really pessimistic, John. That's the bottom line. Yeah, can we win? Yeah, but I'm really pessimistic. And there are a very good quantity of very good libertarians, classical liberals here that will be in the fight of changing people's hearts and minds so they can understand basic economics. We can do that, Frank, and we should do that. The problem is, have you seen on the television how many people are out there, these ignorant, stupid people, Marxists, who believe that destroying property is a way to force them into power and get them goods and services for free under a communist banner so that we can become like Venezuela. We're not talking about a small number of people. We're talking about probably half the population here. It was 55% that voted to get rid of Pinochet, and I bet the same 55% are in favor of all this stuff today. 45% were in favor of Pinochet. So you can say, oh yeah, well, we got 45% on our side. That is also true, but you're living with the 45% minority that's going to be dominated by the other, and the other is violent. They're willing to destroy stuff and really wreck your life. So you got to get a gun, you got to train people. One of the first things we have to do in Chile here is not just the economic education. We need to get everybody with firearms, so we don't have to be trusting in the government. And that doesn't sound very attractive, does it? I mean, but that's the truth. We got to have our guns ready, and we have to be willing to pull the trigger and shoot these scum. I'm talking about literal scum that are destroying people's lives, that kill people. So far, only 14 people dead. But how many people's livelihoods are destroyed right now because they can't go to work? Because Sodimac's been burned down in Concepcion, or here in Viña, these other buildings have been burned down, supermarkets. They don't have jobs because there's no place to go to work. Not only is the transportation doesn't work, they just don't have jobs. How many people lost their jobs in all the metro system or in the other transportation systems in Santiago? Three metro stations were destroyed in Valparaiso too. How about the people that used to work there? I mean, yeah, you can say, well, there's lots of people that have to go and clean up and get paid for that. And well, where are you going to get the money for that? It's a good question, like taxpayers. Oh, you have to, put glass up again. You have to have people building or producing more glass and more fixtures and more, replacing the metro scan units for the beep cards. Oh, that's all fine and dandy. I mean, we might as well have tidal waves and earthquakes too, because the Keynesian vision of the world where we destroy wealth in order to recreate it again is not a sustainable economy, or is it a growing economy, nor is it pleasant to deal with. So, but the answer is, Frank, yes, if we're going to stay here, we have to go overboard, contribute to libertarian parties with money and time, put out our own ads, our own regular shows. We need to hire a producer. So I'm not here running solo, just me, for instance, and the same with other people, running some kind of show out of my bedroom with my microphone and Zoom, which is great for everybody, but let's face it, it could be a whole lot better, right? And we have a better orchestrated program, timed events where people can come and learn. I've got a huge influence that I know in my own life. Here, I've been able to touch students in the classroom and with the Zoom program and chat rooms, where I've convinced people to stop being stupid conservatives or stupid socialists and go for what America originally was, with the Bill of Rights, and have liberty as the principal goal of society. Let a free society reign and capitalism. And they are sold out for it. They are absolutely on board, and they continue to produce and grow in numbers. They continue to listen, they come back and get taught, and they're very grateful for it. We're making great inroads. I'm serious about this. I'm very optimistic. I'm especially optimistic with our Baptist group, by the way, because Baptists are historically natural libertarians. And they are eating it up when I explain the history of how the Baptists were the principal ones that gave us, through John Leland, the Declaration of Independence in the United States. And the original founders were like Thomas Jefferson. He criticized every evangelical Protestant denomination and Catholics except for the Baptists, by the way, if you didn't know that, little trivial point, because the Baptists were armed and willing to fight, just like they were in England with the Civil War in England. Cromwell was a Congregationalist, but his army was probably predominantly Baptists, because they just don't want anything to do with the state. They do not want to be linked with the state. And so I've made inroads with Baptists here. We've got a lot of people, and Joe can testify to this too. He helped with translating getting the old Baptist publications from the 20th century when the missionaries came and brought the ideas and got involved with politics, and were very much the kind of libertarian immigrants in that sense. They brought that vision here that's been trashed since Allende. The Baptists have just gone down the drain. They're a bunch of liberals. They don't believe in the Bible anymore. They don't believe in liberty anymore. It's awful. But they naturally go back to those points as soon as you explain to them Bible principles. So I'm not only hitting them on the economic front with the theory I know from public policy, from economics in a non-religious setting. I'm also being able to make inroads with religious people, specifically Baptists and some Presbyterians who attend a regular Thursday night meeting and a Sunday meeting with us, that are really changing their perspective. They're totally changing how they view the world. So Frank, come on board and help us. Yeah, as long as we're here, we might as well try to take advantage and show how the state has failed. It's failed to protect us here. It's a joke the way it is right now. And we need to go for the principles of liberty again. So absolutely, that gave me a little bit of optimism. Thank you, Frank, for that question, because if we're gonna be here, we might as well do something that's that's worthwhile, and it is working. We are going to get inroads little by little on that score. Okay, let's see. Frank's question is important to me. It's important. It seems that organizing folks here to put any real effort into pursuing their own freedom is an uphill battle. It is an uphill battle, but it's still worth fighting, Joe. Yeah, I mean, it may be uphill, but I think it was uphill in the United States too. And although they had the Great Awakening, first Great Awakening, right before, 20 years before the Revolution, that really helped too. That could spurn people on that liberty was worth fighting for. It can happen here. Liberty doesn't ever come free or cheap, and we have to, put in the time. So consider it, a worthwhile effort. Now, I'm not saying that you should stay here and do that, Joe, or anybody else. I mean, it's a lot easier just to take your toys and go and live on an island for a couple of years. I agree. And it may be the better choice. I'm not criticizing somebody that does that. And that's why I said at the beginning of the show, you need to have a plan B in place or talking about right now, not next week or tomorrow. You need to think about right now, where am I going to go? Frank's mentioned Hungary. The other Joe, when he was here, mentioned Thailand, Malaysia, and other people mentioned Panama. We've talked about all those options already on recording here, so I won't do them again, but that's what you need to do. You need to be ready to go somewhere else, and because it could get so bad that there's nothing to do to save it, and we need to leave. But on the other hand, if we're going to stay here at least for a little while and try to fight with it and see if we can save this country, it's been such a great bastion for liberty and ousting communists in the past, it could happen again. It could happen again. We have every reason to believe, because of Chile's total libertarian first century and the economic side until 1920, and then since 1973, amazing libertarian installation of pulling us up from being the poorest country in Latin America, except for maybe Haiti, and making us the richest, most prosperous, and most modern or country in in the entire region, with everything looking forward until this happened, that can happen again. And it can happen fast. So there is optimism here. There's reason to believe it will repeat, and we will have Chile free again without these kinds of problems. Will it happen immediately? No. Should you be on an island and watching from over there where it's safe? Perhaps. But other people might decide to stay here, like Frank mentioned, start educating these people, start getting ourselves into power positions. Remember this too, Chile is the only government that I know of in the 20th century, well, since at least 1950, let's put it that way, that actually had in the Pinochet government true libertarians like Jose Piñera, who's a Cato Institute member, who was in charge of the economics ministry, as well as the later at the labor ministry and later at the mining ministry, where he totally put in libertarian ideas. And had a huge influence. That's why we have private Social Security and the system we have for medical care. I mean, we've had real libertarians here, and it's not just him. It's Sergio de Castro, Jorge Cuaus, it's Alvaro Bardón, it's Pablo Barahona. And of course, we know Hermógenes Pérez de Arce. He wasn't so much in the government as he was in the editorialist and the Mercurio spokesman for it. And I could name another, dozen probably very important libertarians that got positions. It's like, imagine Ron Paul is stuck in 20 different cabinet level positions over 17 years, and he has real power and he gets something done. That happened in Chile. Where else? Tell me in the world where else that's happened. And you're going to say, no, it hasn't happened. Right. You got it. Ron Paul's one guy, or was one guy out of 454 who had no voice other than to say no to everything. So great. He did the protest vote. But here they did more than a protest vote. They actually changed policy radically. And so Chile can do that again. Will it be easy? No. But do we have the people who are willing to do it? Yes. And can we educate them? Yes. Great question, Frank. And I think, Joe, you have some reason to be pessimistic. And I won't criticize you if you decide to go live in an island somewhere for 2 years. But if you decide to stay here like Frank and probably me, then there's reason for hope that we have something that's going to happen in the future. The Chilean military is not like Venezuela. They do not like the left. From what I understand, talking to officials, and we saw it, Joe, you personally saw it in the Carabinero station when we were looking for the gun permit there. They immediately open up on their screen a picture of Pinochet. They are very pro Pinochet and eliminating communists. They can't stand them. Carabineros and military people were picked off like flies, killed by these communists. I'm talking about, I think there's 700 or 672, if I remember right, Carabineros alone who were murdered by communists in the 1980s here. It's extraordinary. And then there are many others who are in the military that are murdered by communists, just cowards who put in bombs in public places and set them off with special timers just to kill military and cops. So they don't have any love lost. And if I've been told by officers here, Eduardo will tell you this actually too, Joe, who sold you your medical insurance, that when you walk into the office of high-level military officials in Chile, there'll be two pictures on the wall. One is the president of Chile and one is Pinochet. So that's a very different military than what you've got in Venezuela. Absolutely. And at some point, they are not going to put up with it anymore. I don't know when that point is, and I'm not saying it's going to be pretty, but it will be they will stop. I don't think Chile will fall in being a communist country. There may be a lot of people dead. The communists last time in the 70s said that they had planned with the Russian and the Soviet Union, I should say, and Cuba, that 1 million Chileans would die in the class struggle to convert Allende's government into a totalitarian dictatorship. That was the planned loss, 1 million people. And it may be that 1 million people die in Chile. I don't know. And that doesn't sound very attractive either, does it? But it may not come to that either. It may not ever come to that. But there is enough on the military side and enough, we have a libertarian core of people and thinkers here that's a vocal minority that we're going to make an impact. So with that side, we can be optimistic a little bit. Let me get a quick sip here and then I'll take the next question. Okay. Frank's question is important. Okay, I read that one. For the YouTube video text section, can you provide actual links and make it easy for people to educate themselves? Well, okay, you're part of the Partido Independencia group, Frank. Joe, you may be able to help with this if you don't mind. getting into the chat group on WhatsApp, which is used down here and most places in the world, is really important because there you do get the links, and most of them are in Spanish. We can't do this in an English environment. I mean, yeah, there's a lot of people who speak English here, but it's frankly not the people we need to reach. They're already on our team in general. The people we want to reach are the, well, that's an exaggeration or a generalization, excuse me. You understand the point. Most of those people are going to be in the upper classes and hate socialism and stuff already. But the chat rooms, especially our PI chat for Spanish, with that, we have 65 or so members that are very active. I think the English chat has like 35 or 45, I don't remember. And it's not very active unless one of the Spanish guys jumps in there who's bilingual. Occasionally you get more messages or I say something. But there are days when I get 400 or 500 messages through the other chat room. And I know that sounds annoying. It is annoying, but those people are learning and we're debating issues there. And those Chileans who don't know a whole lot, all of a sudden they're getting informed and they're getting links. We got some solid guys like Dusan Vilicek, who's a young guy about 35, who's puts in all sorts of resources in Spanish that come out in the United States, like the Mises Institute and the Foundation for Economic Education and other institutes that around the world that publish stuff that's worth reading. Also Jose Piñera's magazine, Economía and Sociedad, Economy and Society, which is very good, libertarian, free market kind of stuff, capitalist kind of stuff. And so that stuff gets distributed through those chat groups. And some people say, I don't like to have to put up with that dinging sound, all the WhatsApp, all the messages. We just mute that and you put up with it. And the reason you put up with it is because that's how people are going to learn. That's how the interaction happens. And then when I do my shows and other people do shows, people know when they're going on and they participate. Just like you're hearing now, and me being passionate about things. I'm just as passionate in Spanish. I'm not as well spoken, but from what I understand, it's good enough. And people get behind it and they learn and then they go out and spread the word. So that's where our focus is handling there. Also, Jose Piñera and Hermógenes Pérez de Arce, through their books, their writings, and the things they do, is another excellent source. Axel Kaiser, who's pro-abortion, otherwise he's a libertarian as far as I'm concerned, is a guy that gets out there on the TV. He's well-known, well-spoken, PhD in philosophy from Germany recently. He's, again, young guy, maybe 30, 35 years old now, and does an excellent job promoting liberty in Chile. He runs an institution called the Foundation for FPP, para Progreso, the Foundation for Progress in Santiago, and it's a libertarian think tank that kind of like to be like Cato, and they're really not, but they go that direction. Good group of young guys there, and they help. They help produce books, articles, and events that promote liberty. You find out about this when you're in the WhatsApp groups. That's where you should be. Even though it's annoying, that's just the way things are done here. Chileans don't have a lot of money. WhatsApp is free, and they can get information there and read WhatsApp on the bus. If you give them a book, they won't read it. They simply won't do it, most of them. But you give them 10 minutes of chat room stuff to read, they will read it and they get educated on it. So that's our inroad. That's what I found here anyway, to make the most impact besides doing the Zoom casts, and which may be even better. If you can get them into the Zoom room, then you got real teaching going on and they can take notes and think about it and come back every week. We also need to make inroads with the Venezuelans. The Venezuelans that left communism already speak Spanish when they get here. Most of them detest communism, and when they become citizens, they're going to vote libertarian or at least somewhere on the right for some kind of conservative that likes to have free markets and capitalism. That's a huge benefit for us. And same with the Haitians that are here. They aren't happy with their old country, and if we can be friends with those people and help them come in, that is a true plus for us. So we need to focus on them. In our chat room in Spanish, we've got, I don't know how many Venezuelans. There's quite a few. I don't think we have any Haitians. Haitians struggle because of the language. Some of them speak Spanish not well, but most of them don't. And so it's hard for them to be involved in that sense. But those who are involved, especially through churches, it's a good idea to help them along too. Okay, let's see. Other question. Now by email, please provide specific contacts, organizations for people to contact. You mentioned libertarian groups here. Yeah, I'll leave that to Joe to do now. And otherwise, afterwards, I can send an email out or talk about it another time. I'm terrible at doing two things at once, and typing links while I'm talking here is probably not easy. Either choice is difficult. Yeah, Joe, that's why we're here, right? If this were easy, we wouldn't even have to have a Zoom cast, would we? And no choice is absolutely right or wrong. I'm not saying staying and fighting is the right choice. And if you leave, you're a coward. That's ridiculous. I'm not saying that fleeing is the right choice. That's also ridiculous. I'm not saying that living on an island for 2 years and then coming back is ridiculous. All those to me seem pretty right options depending on the scenario for every person. Keeping Chile in your heart probably is a good idea because I think we have a lot of opportunity here at some point, if not in the near future. And I think it can easily go back to what it was. I don't see why not. People are going to quickly understand that they've just given up an awful lot. Like my wife said the other day, are these communists so stupid? Well, of course sometimes they're stupid, sometimes they're malicious to get their point or get their power. But she says to me, well, why in the world would they blow up the metro, the best functioning, profitable metro in Latin America and in most of the world? I mean, it was a stellar project, even though it was statized in most ways. And people could get to work efficiently through it, like crammed in sardines maybe, but they could still get to work. And now they have to walk. I mean, our friend Valentin from the Baptist group, who's become a champion libertarian, as well as a good Baptist, historic Baptist, he had to walk 5 kilometers from his job downtown on Friday to get out before it all happened. And then on Monday, he had to leave work at 2 o'clock, took his laptop home. His boss just finally said, we're going to work remotely here. There's no way I'm going to put everybody in jeopardy from all this chaos. So he gives me the description. That I got to walk through a bunch of hoodlums, bad part of town to get on a bus because he lives sort of in the halfway between here and Santiago. And that's what they're suffering with. So now these common people who just want to go to work can't do it because the stupid communists blew up the tracks or the train stations. Yeah, this happened in 1986, by the way, here in the 5th region, near Villa Alemana, which is inland from Viña del Mar, about 30 minutes. The communists, when they were blowing up power poles and knocking out energy to make a hassle of life for everybody, they decided to blow up the train tracks on one side. And the one that ran inland to Quillota all the way down to Valparaiso. And so the Chileans, not being the brightest, they didn't make a good decision here. They decided, well, we'll just keep the trains running and coordinate it well on the same track and going in opposite directions. And they didn't do it right, and there was a huge collision. 550 or something people injured, and I don't know, many of them were killed when this happened. And they blamed it on incompetence of the Chileans. Yeah, it was incompetent to put trains running in the opposite direction on the same track and not coordinate it well. But let's face it, the real cause of this was not that they were on the same track as much as it was the communists armed unit, the FPMR, blew up the train tracks. And so, yeah, the communists were responsible ultimately for this, just like it was then. They liked the chaos, they liked the death. Like Stalin said, if you want to make an omelet, you have to break a few eggs, right? And so that's what they're willing to do. You're the anthill, and if they have to wipe out 10% or 20% of the anthill to get their power and do what they want, they're going to do it. And make no bones about it, or no mistake about it. We're dealing with communists here, principally, that are doing a lot of this stuff. So at any rate, I don't know, I'm getting off on a tangent there, but these are realities that we face here in Chile, and educate yourself. I'm telling you information you may not have known before. It should encourage you in some sense and discourage you in other senses and help you make an informed decision in every way. And that's the idea. We discussed quite a bit and drew up an outline proposal to try organize the consolidation and sharing of libertarianism in Chile, Joe says. Very true. But it really needs some professional touches, which is also addressed in the outline a bit. I proposed 2 websites, one to provide a blog and another provide party documentation. And that's the outline. Thank you for putting that link there. And let me get on a soapbox just for 2 seconds again, here, or 2 minutes. Guys, I'm doing all that I can, really. I've had my own economic hardships. We had a tremendous hardship with Freedom Orchard, 7 years ago. Still part of my daily prayer is resolving that, although now I guess I can cancel it because we're not going to be looking for that in the near future. But I mean, it's been a serious hardship for me personally, financially, over the last number of years, but I've still tried to keep my hand in all of this. I donate time every week to spend hours either helping people learn in chat rooms or do these kinds of broadcasts. In fact, I stopped doing mostly the EAN broadcasts so I could do so much more in Spanish. It's not that I'm hibernating or something. I've been devoting most of my time to the Spanish language because I live in a Spanish-speaking country, and there are very few people who have the background I have speaking in Spanish, and I'm going to take advantage of that. And it's been successful, frankly. And although the business side was nice too, to have more Americans come down here and pay fees and help me with my business side, I decided to spend more time with the Spanish side. So that has happened. Well, that takes up, well, it takes up time, all right? And for other people, I have I can't tell you how many people have come to me with great advice and opinions. They hear all these stories, maybe like you guys are right now, and then they'll send me notes saying, okay, John, what you need to do, or Dr. Coben, or Professor Coben, or Pastor Coben, or whatever you want, whatever they choose to call me, you need to do this now. Okay, thanks. You need to produce this. You need to add this to your videos. You need to go and run and handle this in that way. And you need to build a banner and be more active in meetings. Pamela and I have carried a big banner in a couple of marches, or at least one, and some other ones we've been involved with, in favor of pro-life, for instance, or pro-libertarian ideas. No one else goes sometimes, just us. Look, I only have so much time in the day. Everyone else seems to be happy and do well financially, and the least you can do is donate. So if you're not going to put time in, start sending $50 or $100 a month to helping Chile be free. Because to put it all on me, where I got to pay for the sign, I got to go out and march, I got to do the Zoom cast, I got to produce my own show. Frankly, guys, it's a recipe for disaster. I'm willing to do a lot, but how effective is one man's show going to be? So Joe wrote up this great outline trying to get people to participate, and Joe's been helping too a lot of ways. So I don't want to minimize his involvement because it's been very helpful. But there aren't any other Joes. There's Deucin, who does a lot in the Spanish side, very helpful guy, but he's mostly in charge of the education of these newcomers and debating with them, the socialist idiots or the brainwashed people that need to be converted into a more libertarian mindset. And he does a great job at that. Other than that, we have very few of us. Last night we had Gino come on, who was a former student of mine. All of my students who began as communists or socialists were then converted to be libertarians after classes. They still follow what I'm doing. A lot of them are in our chat groups. They help a little bit here and there, but like any political movement, we need money. We need people who are willing to devote time to be editors who know something about using this technology, who will take the YouTube video we're doing today, for instance, and put a really nice introduction on it with music, or put things on the screen so that it flashes right there during my speech, and not ask me to do it, because asking me to do it is really not an efficient solution. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm not good at any of those things. I'm willing to do it, but it's not going to be a very good product. And then people have the audacity to complain that it's really not and my wife does this sometimes, bless her heart, as we say in the South. She says, well, this doesn't look very professional. Well, I don't know what I'm doing. I don't know anything about technology like this. I don't like it. And I don't have time to learn about it. I got plenty of other things to do. I don't see anybody else doing this work. So if somebody could step up to the plate and say, I'm going to donate 5 hours a week to making sure these videos get edited well. We do short snippets to send out on a public broadcast twice a week, and they're going to be beautiful. That would be something really useful. If somebody else could manage the database of emails and send out notes asking for people to donate and to promote the political party here. Getting a political party here started is very difficult, by the way. I should say that for a minute, and I'll come back to that. But there are lots of little jobs that need to be done that a lot of people could do, but nobody wants to do them. And if nobody's going to do them, it's not going to get done, because I can't do everything, frankly. That's just the bottom line, guys. I'm only one man, and even if you think I'm Superman for whatever reason, I'm going to disabuse you of that thought. I'm not. But even if you think that, I still can't do it all. I can't turn around everybody. And even though I'm well connected and have the abilities, it's not going to happen. Political party here, to start one, is not like the United States. To get a libertarian party started, you need to get 100 people interested, signed at a notary saying that they're interested in the party. Then you go down to Cervelle and you put yourself in the process of a formation of a party. And then after you do that, you have, I think, 8 months to collect signatures. And they are signatures at a notary again. The notary is not allowed to charge for the signature, but you have to go in there and you have to put your thumbprint on there and sign. that you want to be part of the Partido Independencia that we're starting, for instance, which is a pro-life libertarian party. After that happens, you have to have at least 3 contiguous regions in Chile, like could be the 5th, the 6th, and the 7th, or the metropolitan region, which is the hard one to get, plus the 5th, plus the 6th, for instance. You could have those, or 8 regions anywhere in Chile that have at least 0.25% of the voters who signed. 0.25. No, it's let's see, yeah, 0.25%. Of all the people who voted in the last parliamentary election, which would have been in 2017 in November. And also there's a caveat because of their small regions that and under no circumstances can it be less than 500 signatures. So some places normally would be only 200 signatures, but it's boosted to 500, making those places like Copiapó and Coyhaique kind of off limits, because now is it not only 0.25, it's going to end up effectively being 0.75 to get that many signatures. You got to get people motivated to go to a notary. Maybe you can pay them. That's something else we can do with money. If somebody's willing to hand out 5,000 peso notes, we can probably get enough people to go and sign, even if they don't believe. And that may be worth doing, frankly. It really might be the solution. Just pay them to go to the notary. Follow me to the notary. As soon as I see it signed on the page, you get your 5,000 note. And thank you very much. It could happen. So anyway, after you do that, you can get on the ballot. You can get your candidates set up, and you have a libertarian party. You got principles. You have to run them just like in the U.S. The kind of the rules of order. And then to stay on as a political party, the next parliamentary election, you have to have 3 people elected to Congress at least. So, and as soon as you don't have 3 people elected, your party gets eliminated. So political parties here are complicated, very difficult to form and very difficult to maintain. Could be done though, but you need to have an apparatus that has money, people who are committed to following up and doing stuff. And until that happens, it's kind of like blowing in the wind, just whistling in the wind. And that's why we haven't actually tried to form, because even if I was able to form the party, we wouldn't necessarily be able to field the candidates. And if we could field the candidates, we wouldn't necessarily be able to win the elections. Now, a little bit of a footnote about this. Chile has a wonderful system where people get dragged in on this kind of weird voting system where the winning coalition, because there'll be different kinds of parties in a coalition here, whoever's in the winning coalition, if there's 8 seats available, the first guy gets the seat, obviously, and then he drags in 3rd place, normally the 5th place, 7th, and maybe the 8th place, like in Concepcion or Santiago or Valparaiso areas. And that means if you only had, like in last election, 0.9, I think was the minimum percent of the vote, and some people had up to 4% of the vote, you are in Congress right now. So you can actually win as a libertarian as long as you line up with one of these other major parties, even if you hate the major party during the election and then divorce, shortly thereafter. You can get dragged in and only get 4% of the vote. And then you have true political power. That does not happen in the United States. I mean, Ron Paul won his district because of the way his district was. Let's face it, people like that can get elected, but it's not common. And here it's far easier to get elected if you have a viable candidate. So I underscore all that because that kind of action is a real plus about Chile. And so we need to keep that in mind. But I need money, I need helpers, somebody who can do something and let me just do what I'm good at, frankly, which is not editing videos, not putting links up, not doing all these other things that people have mentioned we need to have done. Somebody else step up to the plate and do that and be committed about doing it, and then we can have a chance. But don't be trying to have me fix my own car when I barely know how to change my own oil. Does that make sense? It's stupid. It's stupid efficiently in running an organization to have a guy that's either not good at or not interested in doing something in charge of doing that thing. It's going to fail. And that's what you're asking for when you put me in that position. But on the other side, I have tremendous successes. So let me do those things instead of always sending me notes of many people do this, send me notes asking me to do certain things and give me good advice while they sit back and watch. Well, that just doesn't work. That's not how political organizations work. This is not going to happen. Okay, and next question looks like from Frank. Excellent request for specific actions. How should people watching the YouTube contact you to help? Well, thank you for asking that. The best way, I mean, Joe, you can put the WhatsApp contact there so we can add. They can send Joe a message or me, and I can just add your number to the WhatsApp group. And once you're in our WhatsApp group, then you can ask me or anybody else what you need. There's a Spanish and an English group, and that's how most of us communicate. You can also send me an email personally to Chile Advisory Group at gmail.com. That, you know, I occasionally still check that, although comparatively speaking, I guess 99% of my time is on WhatsApp and the rest is on email. Not that much, relatively speaking. People can also call, I guess, me personally, although I prefer that not be the case because it's too much for me to deal with. But yeah, there could be that method too. If somebody really wants to get in touch, you can call the home phone. I don't know if that's a good idea to put here or not. What do you think, Joe? You tell me. Maybe I'm asking for trouble when we do that. If you just send me the email or give them the link to join. Joe, if I'm able to send you the link for how to join the English speaking WhatsApp group, are you able to post it here? That may be a dumb question. I think you can. So I'm going to call it up right now and I'm going to send it to you because I think I'm the administrator of this group. And I believe that it gives me entitles me to be able to send out a link. Info of the group. See, I'm doing it right now. I don't know how I used to live without this cell phone device, but I literally don't know how I could cope without it today. Here it is, the copy of the group. I'm going to send it to you, Joe, and I'll send it to you, Frank, so you can both, if you'd like, post it into the chat group here because you're both in the PI group. Oh, by the way, when you're in these PI groups, please have patience. You're dealing with Chilean people that act like children sometimes and get involved with the stupidest kinds of debates and questions. I've been tolerating it for years, but if we just bail out and get angry and we don't like having to put up with it, yeah, we're not going to get anywhere. You understand? We have to deal with the fact that we live in this culture. So if you want to be part of this, you have to put up with all their stupid comments. And sometimes you get racist people in there, which drive me nuts too. I have no interest in racism. You got these Aryan type people in Chile that believe that Europeans from the north are superior to other people. It just disgusts me. But anyway, they're here. And so you got to deal with that fact. And a lot of them are going to be interested in coming over and being libertarian someday, but you got to get over the hump. And so there's some stuff you have to put up with that is really disgusting or unpleasant, but it's just part of it, part of the deal. That's just the way it is. At least they're not pro-aborts. For me, that's even more disgusting. People who chop up unborn children, that to me is just really hard for me to take. Yet I have to suck it up and take it in the United States with that too, with their common actions there. But I believe I've succeeded now in sending you the join link for the PI English group. So if you could post that for me, I would appreciate it. I suppose this can go from my phone to the screen we're looking at now. And if I would sit here and figure it out for a minute, I believe I could do it on my WhatsApp on the screen and copy it over, but I'll let you do it if you don't mind. Okay, I've talked a lot there. Let's see, this is, yeah, not yours. Okay, Joe, good. And so there's the chat. Is that the way it goes? HTTPS chat whatsapp.com. All right, good. Yeah, that's a good way to be in touch with me or others. Oh, and those are very helpful groups to be in if you need jobs or other things. You get some really nice people in there, and the contacts you make are able to lead to other things for business and other social relationships. Many of the Chilean guys in the WhatsApp English group obviously are bilingual. And so for some of you who are still handicapped because you're not good in Spanish, the English chat is a way for you to influence and touch the Spanish side too, because there's a number of the members, I don't know, 10 or 15 of them that are in the Spanish group. We also have people in Venezuela, in the United States, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic. I think we have several especially in the Baptist group too, which is somewhat linked. We have people from Bolivia, Argentina, some people I think are still in Europe. All of those are in the group a little bit. I think we have one guy in the English group, Thompson, who's from Nigeria. That's a lonely place to be a libertarian. He runs a libertarian institute there, and he's in our group. I don't know what he adds, but it's interesting to have him in there. So you can make contacts with other people in Latin America, especially Chile, that will help promote liberty, and you can share links when you find something that would be helpful for people. In the PI group, if you're a very religious person like I am, you have to refrain from talking about any kind of religious issues, except in these possible cases. One is that you show the historic link between libertarianism and religion, which is, for instance, in Baptist history, is very easy to do because Baptists were not only well armed at the American Revolution and during this English Civil War, they were very much in favor of fighting and attacking the king anytime they could to reduce themselves from slavery. They influenced John Locke directly, and that was, of course, the founder of libertarian or classically liberal ideas. So you can talk about anything like that. You can also talk about how religion influences social institutions, and that some civilizations, like Western civilization based on Christianity, is vastly superior to other institutions because of its religion. For instance, if you're a woman or an atheist, you wouldn't want to live in a Muslim society or most Eastern societies, unless it happens to you're in a Muslim in a Muslim society. But in a libertarian society in the West, you have ample freedoms. You wouldn't mind living in that kind of place. In fact, you wouldn't want to be a woman anywhere, frankly, in the world, unless it's a Christian-based Western civilization. So those things can be talked about, the influence of institutions, because libertarians are very interested in institutions, and they believe that some institutions are superior to others, and that the one that's governed the world for 5,000 years, the Judeo-Christian one, has clearly been the better choice compared to other ones, and that's okay to talk about. But those are the two principal points. You can also talk about religion in any way, like quoting the Bible or other things that will help recruit people to be part of the party. So if, for instance, when I talk to evangelicals here in Chile, I'm very blatant about my commitment to Jesus Christ, and as a Baptist Christian, I don't have any scruples, nor do I have any shame about saying that publicly. And frequently I will tell them that, and I will also tell them that I believe from the scriptures that the state is satanic, and we need to break away from it. And these are the reasons why. And I will give Bible verses. It's gotten to the point, it's almost funny in our chat, where atheists quote the Bible now. And one atheist, or like Dewson, has said, I'm an atheist, but if I were going to be a Christian, I would be a Baptist. He says stuff like that. And it's amusing to us, because when people come in there that are strongly religious and want to talk about the Bible, he, as an atheist, jumps all over them and starts citing the scripture showing why there's no reason they should trust in the Herods, Nebuchadnezzars, Pharaohs, or anybody, frankly, Pilates, that in the government system from the Bible, and that those people have brought evil on them, and then they need to look at liberty principles. And as a first step, they get brought over that way, thinking, yeah, they shouldn't be trusting in the state as much, and then they begin to learn libertarian ideas. And that's okay. So in those cases, you can talk about religion, but you're not to talk about it in any other way, unless it's in private chat. Or we can move you over to and join you to the Baptist chat when you can speak Spanish, and you can have a field day there and go all over the place and talk about religion and stuff there. So that's the only caveat. Otherwise, there's a declaration of principles. You're going to get run out of town if you're a nationalist or a racist. People don't like that in our chat groups. That's really annoying. They come in frequently and try to stir up the pot and say stupid things, and it's really upsetting. But if you can put up with all that, like I have to, you can actually do some damage here and really do well for damage, I said. So you can really do well for the cause of liberty, and also have some opportunities, if you're a Christian, to eventually even share the gospel with other people in private. So look at it as an opportunity, and put up with the annoyances, please, in the chat group if you decide to join. So there's a long advertisement with a little bit of warning for it, the English chat and the Spanish chat too. Okay, I don't know if there's other questions here or not. I see looks like Frank is typing one or something. And you're welcome to unmute yourself. I see we have a number of people here who haven't, I don't know, I know lots of Gregs and Daves and stuff in the world, but I'm not sure who everybody is. Ricow. I think there've been a couple of Johns besides me here. You're welcome to unmute and just talk. This is not just a lecture by any stretch of the imagination. And I'm willing to stay for as long as it takes to get your answers satisfied today, questions answered. I've got literally nothing else to do other than watch and see if there's smoke rising over Valparaiso. That was really horrifying when that happened. Stupid communists. It just drives me nuts. And the one guy interviewed this morning just said, he's walking to work, 60 years old. He says, I'm just considering it exercise. I lived through the Allende days, and this is worse. I mean, I just take it as I got to go to work. So I get up early and I put my suit on and I'm going to walk, whatever it is, 5 miles to go to work, because nobody wants to run a bus. The buses could run over here, by the way, but they all start in Valparaiso. And so nobody wants to start. They don't want to go through that semi-war zone over there. Some of you know Pastor Daniel, a Baptist guy who was a co-elder with me for a while, and they burned down his church. It's a Presbyterian church they rent. And these guys, these radicals, just burned it down. And none of them were in service. Nobody was there. And the reason is that we're not allowed to meet. There's no assemblies allowed when there's curfews, even for churches. So church services are canceled. It's really annoying. I mean, we can still do other things, but that's part of the cost of having your liberty curtailed when the government's trying to deal with this problem and they're not doing a good job of it. But they burned down his church. So that annoys me too. I don't like, or I shouldn't say his church. They burned down the building where he was meeting, because that touches me sort of personally. I've been working to try to get some extra jobs in universities here. All universities are closed. That also irritates me. And nobody's going to go to work. Nobody's thinking about hiring extra professors and things like that. So really annoying. So the destruction and the lack of work and stuff is really debilitating here. But it gives us something to talk about, doesn't it? It gives us time to be home and visit with our friends on Zoom and do email or do YouTube broadcasts. I hope at least you can give me the thumbs up that this has been a helpful, informative broadcast for you. I'm actually expecting that some of you might want more detailed information about what's happened. Have you been watching the news? Do you watch these leftist reporters go through the cycle of different cities? The looting in Punta Arenas, the burning of the government building in Osorno, fires and barricades put up on streets to prevent trucks and other people getting through with supplies, hospitals on strike, and trash cans overturned, bonfires started, multiple businesses destroyed by fire, arson, many malls broken into, every window busted, and just people hauling off, appliances and TVs and all sorts of goods just walking down the street in great impunity. I mean, this is what we've seen, and that they showed live on camera, and nobody stopped them. And they literally filled their houses with goods. No insurance coverage. Is just a loss for the business. And we're talking about unbelievably high losses. If you see the size of these super centers, if you're in the US, imagine a Home Depot or a Lowe's or a super Walmart being completely looted. So there's almost no goods left inside it. People just walked off with it all. That's been happening not just once, and we're talking about a lot of places. And other stores like that, instead of looting it, the communists just go and burn it. Just literally light it on fire. So, I mean, that's the reality here, folks, and it's disgusting. It's a really evil thing, really satanic and disgusting. I hope this information is useful for you, and if there are any other details, I have them, and I just need to ask me, and I will gladly tell you about other things that I know of, things that have been burned or destroyed, and other kind of vicious acts that have been happening. I think the death toll is still at 14. That seems to go up. Oh, well, here's one that I think I mentioned too, that one of these criminals was being chased down by one of the military, I think, and the car, and he tripped or something. They ran over him and killed him. Okay. I mean, God says not take any pleasure in the death of the wicked. I don't, but I don't feel bad for this criminal that just, looted and was burning a store, right? It's just, he got what he deserved, or maybe not, but whatever. It is what it is. Well, that military man is now on trial for violating the human rights of this scum. And that's Chile. That's what we're having to deal with. And the courts are these leftist judges that let these people off. There is no justice. The best justice you've got is your 45 or your 40 or your 9 or whatever's in your drawer or your safe or whatever you got it. If you got a shotgun, great. That's where you're going to get the best justice in Chile, because the courts are going to let these people go. and they'll go out and do their crimes again. It's a serious problem here, and it's a known problem, and something has to be changed. But since the Pinochet government, the courts have been progressively stacked with leftists that unless you have a lot of money to get off, like the big businesses do with their misdeeds, anybody in the middle that doesn't have a lot of money or a lot of power just gets screwed. Criminals get, they'll pay, crime pays here. You rip off a store, you get 5 million peso take, which is about what, $8,000, $7,000, something like that. And so a good haul for them. They get caught. There's no room to put them in prison. The judge says, okay, I'll tell you what, you can stay at home with an ankle bracelet on for 61 days. You can't leave at night, but you can go out during the day and work. He's not going to work. He's going to enjoy what he stole or sell it. And then when the ankle bracelet comes off, he's going to go do it again because it pays to be a criminal here. Those are realities. And we've seen that direct sentence in court. Pamela and I were sitting in there watching when they dictated that sentence. Disgusting. And I've been ripped off here just as people in Gulch, Chile did. There's no recourse. They steal from you, and there's no way these lawyers they'll promise you what they can do something, and they don't. They just take more money from you, and you get no results. I didn't know all that, by the way, about 5-7 years ago. I learned that the hard way over the last 3 or 4 years, and it's been extremely hard to deal with. But it is what it is. Sure, Frank, I appreciate your comment. Thanks for the call. It's been very informative. All right, well, would you all like to end the call, or is there more to talk about? Great meeting, John. Thanks for inviting me. Unfortunately, due to being away at time, I got here an hour late. Oh, you're in Puerto Rico. John, oh, good. Glad you joined us, John. Well, please share the video. That's something you can do. It's a long video now. What are we talking about? 2 hours, right? Or close to it. But if people want to be informed and be honestly given the facts and the alternatives, I hope I've done that for you today. I haven't pulled any punches. I've criticized Chile where it deserves to be criticized. And I've also given you the alternatives to make this a great country again and why we have a great history here. And so I think there's reason for optimism, but it might be challenging. When the missionary movement started, by the way, and I'm going to talk about missionaries here, just so you know, Baptists have been a big part of libertarian politics. Charles Spurgeon, I quoted this, some of you guys know this, he was a great Baptist preacher in the 19th century in England, and he was a humorous guy. And I might be able to play the clip for you. Joe, do you have that clip by any chance? Because it'd be fun, since you all know English, to play it and listen. Is there a way you could listen to it? I'll tell you what, I'll let you look for it, Joe, and I'll explain it. The link's in the chat group, and maybe there's a way we could put it on Zoom here, and I can make you co-host here, Joe, and you can go ahead and play it. I should have made you co-host long ago. But Spurgeon basically was a militant liberal in England at the time, a person who was a libertarian by today's standard. That party doesn't exist anymore. And he came out of the voting booth one day, and some Christian stopped on the road and didn't believe you should be involved in politics. This is according to Ian Murray, a Presbyterian, recounting this. And he said to him, don't you know that Christians shouldn't vote or shouldn't be involved in politics? That's all stuff of this world. That's part of what the old man is, from Colossians 3, 9, and 10. And so didn't you know, Spurgeon, that the new man doesn't vote? And Spurgeon said, oh, yes, the new man didn't vote, because he knew he was coming from the polling place. And the guy was surprised. And he said, well, then the Bible says we're supposed to crucify the old man with his deeds. And he said, well, I did exactly that, because my old man is a Tory or a conservative, and I forced him to vote liberal. So it's a hilarious quote. I hope you can listen to it. But the point is that the Baptists who came here to start churches here in Argentina and other places had that same philosophy. The first missionary that came here was a direct disciple of Spurgeon, who came from England, a guy named William MacDonald. And later there were others who came from America. And all of them had this idea of the Declaration of Independence, or these ideals that Americans hold dear in Chile. And so Chile was indoctrinated with this idea in an era where there was a lot of libertarian thinking already. Argentina also received it, Brazil, Mexico, Cuba, China, and Japan. Those are the first foreign missions. Before then, there were few, like Burma and India with Kerry and Orion Judson, you know, those happened too. But those ideas of liberty that are here in South America are largely due to much of this missionary push that came in the late 1900s and early 20th century. So I mentioned that to you because those kind of details give you another idea about what Chile is or what it used to be and how it could be restored again if you want an angle. About 5 million evangelicals or something like that live in Chile, 3 million at any rate, and most of them are Pentecostals, but all of them are open to hearing ideas. So even if you're an atheist, for instance, in our chat groups, you usually don't mind talking about evangelicals, even though you think it's a bunch of crock and that God doesn't exist and whatever, and you just bite your tongue because you need the votes, and there's not a whole lot of atheists here. So if those people themselves are talking to the evangelicals and trying to get them to go back to their more libertarian roots. So there's something else that can be done, might be of some interest. Okay, and Joe has sent another link, which I assume is the funny quote from Spurgeon, right? With Ian Murray talking about the history of Spurgeon. Joe says, Joe, what is this a link to watch the broadcast on YouTube since I missed an hour from the start? Wait a minute, I can solve that problem for you just a moment. I am now about to send to you and to our group the YouTube, because I know I have that on my screen. Just be patient for a second and let me find that for you. Here it is. Let's see if this works. I'm also going to see if I can just put it in the chat group. This is to everybody. There. I'm very proud of myself. Thank you very much. I think that's the way it is. Load that up there, John, and see if that actually works. I think it shall work. And I will also send it to Joe on WhatsApp and Frank and to the English PI group. PI means Partido Independencia, or Independence Party. And I'm sending it here. Okay, so everybody's got the YouTube link. You can actually go into the YouTube right now and be live. There's a chat room there and stuff like that. I'm not monitoring it because we're here live in Zoom. Everybody can get the direct link. Normally when we do these programs, I go on Zoom with my guest if I have one, and then everybody else goes to YouTube and uses the chat room there. And if somebody's there or I can monitor the questions there, we look. And we get rabble-rousers. It's a fun time if you want to go in there and you meet people who hate liberty. Communists show up and they spew their vile comments at us and stuff like that. So that's a interesting thing to do, I guess, if you don't mind watching the chat line roll. But that's to be expected. I don't mind. Everybody I know in history who's had any kind of influence has been hated by somebody else. As far as I know, Jesus and the apostles were pretty well hated by most people. So you got to figure you're on the right track if a lot of people hate you and are willing to put you down for your views. So that's okay. They can come and hate us all they want. I'll just keep doing what I got to do, as you will too. But anyway, the YouTube link is there. So that I think it will work as soon as I close the broadcast today. Here's something else, Frank, another thing somebody can do. If somebody can edit the video, cut off the bad spots where I just don't talk or something, put up the text on the video, and then even on the YouTube, fill in the description and the keywords. Because it's something I can do, I'm not necessarily good at, and there's probably a better way to do it than I do it. I don't want to leave it blank, which I think is the worst choice. But then there's another thing to do, and that's that we have our Independence Party is the one hosting this YouTube. But that, I understand there's a software that you can download it and put it onto our Independence Party Facebook page. And somebody can do that. It's just time, right? But anybody can do it. And so don't send me a note that I should learn how to do it and do it myself, because that's really not efficient, all right? Somebody can do that. That can't be that hard. And then I've been told that other people can download it and upload it to other YouTube sites or Facebook sites. So somebody should do that. It shouldn't be me. It's somebody. I don't know how to do that. I don't want to learn either. So don't ask me to learn it. I got enough of stuff to learn and read. Somebody else can do that. And somebody else can break up the video if they just want to do the one section on this or out of the other. Just cut it out and make another video out of it and put the window dressing or whatever else you want to call it around. do that. You have my permission. You can, I'm not saying anything in private that I wouldn't say in public. I'm not ashamed of anything I've said. So at least not today. That may happen in other days, but go ahead. If you want to do that in Spanish or in English, somebody take the reins and just do it. As I understand it, you don't even need to talk to me. You just download the video and start spreading it around, cut it up and package it in different ways. That's kind of the beauty of this, isn't it? So you have the president of the party has said, do it. So there you go. You have your authority to do it. Okay. Yes. Thank you. That worked. Thanks, John. Dave in Idaho, that Bitcoin guy, I have to run. Be safe and good luck down there. All right. Well, thank you. We need, I guess, lots of luck or providence, and we'll try to stay safe. As long as I don't have a lot of bullets is my problem. I don't know how long I'll survive as 57-year-old semi-portly guy that's probably not in very good shape as a communist, but I think I can shoot better than them still. So maybe I'll outlast them, at least as long as I have in my clip. I don't think I have any more than 46 in between all my clips. And if I get attacked by 50, that means me 4-1 at my best odds. So I don't know. I'm being a little bit facetious there, but that's the reality of it. I'm not a coward, and if they attack me, I will shoot. Thank you about the comment about being safe. I will try, and I will try to keep my wife safe and my friends if I can. I feel bad because some of my friends here don't have guns, even though we've tried for a long time for them to do two things here: learn Spanish and get a gun. And for one reason or another, they haven't done one or the other. And both those things are devastating at this point because not knowing Spanish is always going to be hard in Chile, and not having a way to defend yourself when you have crazy, nutty, bad people out there is another serious problem. If you stay home and you're in the upper class district, probably nothing's going to happen to you. It's the problem is when you're going out or you need to interact, or if the protesters get near you, then yeah, there'll be a potential problem. But thank you, Dave, for the comment. And I know you were just making a quick comment to say goodbye, but I thought I'd elaborate a little bit at any rate. Okay, so Dave's gone. We've got Joe, John, and Greg, and Frank. Anybody else have a remark or comment? Anything else I can help with? All right, good, Gracie, thank you. All right, very good. Yeah, it's been a long show. I'll tell you what, I'll send another broadcast time if there is a need for one so that we can all have a meeting again. Glad to do it. It might be later this week, unless there's something that just dramatically happens between now and then. And if nothing dramatic happens, maybe we'll do it next Tuesday. Or if no change is necessary at all, then maybe we won't do it again at all. But by all means, join the chat groups, and that's the easy way to communicate with me and get caught up on what we're doing here. All right, so this is, I'm also called the Libertarian Voice in Chile, by the way. My main show is the John Coben Show, I think it's called, or Dr. Coben Show, comma, the Libertarian Voice. And so that's what you look for in Spanish if you're going to listen. But this is the Libertarian Voice signing off for now and saying goodbye. Wish you all well and hope to see you again soon. Thanks for joining us today. Bye for now.